Hello, brothers and sisters. Are you a wise guy or a wise girl? Do you not want to live according to wisdom? Having put aside the red letter study, I could not see any better subject to look at than wisdom itself. And what better book than, of course, the book of Proverbs. Now, right away, by doing that, focusing on a study on the book of Proverbs, I am making this much more difficult for myself than it needs to be. Here's what I mean. If you study or preach on any other book, like a historical book, it's easy. You just look at what the story is saying, what is God teaching us through it, and how it focuses on Christ. Again, the same thing happens when you look at the prophets. Well, yes, you look at what is God saying to Israel, but also what he's saying about the coming Messiah, first or second coming. You can do the same thing about the teaching aspects. Think of the book of the laws, the book of the law, or think of the epistles. You're just teaching rules and commandments and how they apply. When you get to the book of Proverbs, so you get really some difficult parts. It's difficult because of the two main approaches in the book and the three divisions. The two main approaches, basically, first of all, what you'll have is from chapter 1 to 9, what I would call teachers. It's these teacher type persons who are reaching out to students or disciples. You'll have sometimes a father figure talking to his child, but other times you'll have wisdom itself embodied, crying out, "Follow my way." But then you'll have the contradiction of the foolishness itself calling you to follow their way. Sometimes it's called Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. And you see that for these first 9 chapters. This is the right way, this is the wrong way. They're trying to teach a disciple. It comes back around at the end of the book, last 2 chapters, 30 and 31, where you have Ogre and Lemuel. And there again, it's weird because these two men, we don't know who they are. There is no King Lemuel all through Judean history. Not a one. Not in the south, not in the north. Nobody even nicknamed that. Yet these men were inspired by God to kind of teach disciples. And even then, Lemuel is more like in the first part, but Ogre has a whole other approach, which we'll get to in time. Then you have the big middle section, the one we mostly know. And that's what I would call the sayings, or some have called them truisms. And that's important. They are basic truths that more or less would work in this way. If you do this, this will happen. But they're not absolutes. That's what people kind of get all tangled into knots. They're not absolutes like God is spirit or is love. Or we could say that salvation is by grace through faith. Those are absolutes, truth. That's the way it works. That's not what's going on in Proverbs. These are, once again, sayings, truism. If you do this, this should happen. If you do that, that should happen. And Ecclesiastes even comes around and says, it doesn't always work like this. Exactly. That's the point. For example, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, there you go. It's proof my child will be saved. Even if they detoured, they will come back because God promised. No, it's not a promise. It's a basic truism. If you do a good job teaching your ways about the Lord, to kids about the Lord, they should follow it. But it's not absolute truth. Same thing with this one. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Does this mean we should beat children with rods? No. It's imagery. It's truism. It is important to discipline children because they're sinners. But we'll get into it when we get there. So, like I said, it's a difficult thing to approach such a book, which is why I'm going to kind of separate these studies into 2 main parts. Just like there's 3 main sections, teacher, truisms, more teachers. Well, we're going to first focus on the teachers. We're going to cut it down piece by piece and see what are these teachers, wisdom, father to his sons, is saying, and try to make sense of it for us today. Same thing when we get to the last two chapters. I say it to us today because we can't forget that there's a context to this. Proverbs is, it says, applied Mosaic law. It's in the context of the Old Testament. Basically, here's all the laws and the rules, but they don't tell us how to live day to day. That's Proverbs. Proverbs says, here's the law reality, and here's how you should live it day to day. But we're not under law. Yet, the law of God is written in our hearts. And the writers of the epistles come in to help us make sense of what that means when they tell us, do this and don't do that. These are sins, these are commandments. But I digress. My point is saying the book of Proverbs is, first of all, in the context of the Old Testament, still there are truisms that we want to make sense of for us. So that's going to be our first section, our first approach. Then we'll bite into the main section, the truisms. And what we're going to do is actually look subject by subject, like laziness and the tongue and riches. We're going to look at as many Proverbs, what they have to say about this subject and that subject and that subject. That may take a lot of time for each subject. And some might overlap because some of these truisms seem to talk about one thing and another. Some are contrasting one with the other. This is the right way, you'll get this. This is the wrong way, you'll get that. And others are just basically, this is wrong, here's why. The lazy person looks like that. And this is right, do this. The wise person does this. But we're going to look at it piece by piece. We're going to remind ourselves these are truism, that this is under the old covenant way of life, and remind us of the most important part of all. This is not just good rules for everybody. I've heard that way too many times. You want to have a good business? Follow Proverbs. No. Because the first thing we're told about this book and about divine wisdom, by the way, wisdom is applied knowledge. That's a simple way of defining it. It's putting into practice these truth, these doctrines, these commandments of God. This is how you apply this knowledge of God in your life. That's wisdom. And the first thing it says in the book of Proverbs is the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. This is not for everybody who wants to have a good business. This is for believers. First and foremost, the wisdom being given to us is for those who fear the Lord, who are in relationship with God. This is how you should live that relationship. So I do hope and believe it will be a blessing to us. And I do encourage you, start by reading the first chapter. That's what we're going to be attacking next time around. Keep in mind these things I mentioned. Read some good books on Proverbs. It'll probably help you out. But be careful about those traps I've mentioned. On that note, brothers and sisters, I hope you're looking forward to becoming wise guys and wise girls. Be blessed.